How's everybody doing tonight? Huh? How's everybody doing tonight? Come on. We had Chick-fil-A. What else can you ask for? Other than Farrell's ice cream at the very end. I am so honored to be here. I've had an opportunity to look at the program that you have, and wow, you are so blessed with the people that have put this together. And there's a lot of people I could thank, and I don't want to miss anybody. But there are two people, Pastor Jeremy and Pastor Dennis. Of course, I mean, what visionaries, absolute visionaries, to put this together and to have this kind of turnout. Because I'll tell you, the next one is going to be double the size and triple the size, and I don't know, you're going to have to find a big, huge auditorium coming up for this next one. I also want to thank Helen. Actually, Helen Mitchell is the one that kind of told me about what was going on here, and wow, to be part of this, I am very, very excited. I'm also a little nervous because I've never been the leadoff batter before, and I know the leadoff batter has an important job, and that's just to get a hit. And so I'm hoping at the end of my talk tonight that you'll feel that I got on base, and maybe a few of the things that I'm going to share with you tonight will resonate with you, and you'll be able to carry that forward. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about not only bringing faith into business, but I'm going to kind of tell you my journey, because I'm an older guy. And as you heard, wow, what a variety of careers. You know, every time I hear that, when I'm introduced, I always sit there in kind of an amazement as to the sense of humor God has had with me, moving me around like a chess piece. And the reason that happened, as I found out later, is because that's what I asked for. So, and I've got to tell you, I've been very blessed that God has used me in a variety of ways. So with that, I first have to acknowledge the passing of our founder. Bob Farrell passed away a couple of months ago. He was 87 years old. He started Farrell's in 1963 and was a great Christian man. He was one of the ones that actually funded the Young Life organization, and he was heavily involved in that. He was a winner of the Horatio Alger Award. If you're not familiar with that, it's for philanthropic work, as well as they award it to someone that started from really nothing and grew, and it was just an honor and a privilege to have worked with that man, and I learned so much from him, and I hope tonight he would be proud of the words I'm going to say to y'all. So what is Farrell's? Well, how many of you have been to Farrell's before? Farrell's. Woo-hoo-hoo! Wow! I've got to come back to Sandy. Yeah, we have got to get back here. I was inundated when I walked in, and we are actually looking here and in a couple of different areas. So I can tell you this, there will be a Farrell's here, and I'm going to say probably in the next 2 years, maybe sooner. Well, then I'm going to skip all of this because I think you all know what it is. It's a crazy, zany place. Again, wacky staff. We've got great ice cream dishes, great food. Like I said, it started in 1963 in Portland, Oregon by Bob Farrell. And, you know, when he kicked it off, it was like, holy cow, people were going crazy. I went to when I was up for his memorial service, I went by the first Farrell's that he had actually taken to. He wanted me to see what it was. And of course, I think it's a Chinese restaurant now. I can't remember, but in any case, you know, he wanted to tell me, you know, that's where they started in Portland, Oregon, and it just absolutely took off because he was making people happy. He he was really almost like the restaurant version of Disneyland. And I think most of you would probably agree if I were to ask you about your favorite memories. And, even people like, see that little guy up in the corner there? That's actually President Bill Clinton eyeing that big ice cream pile right there back when he was young and they actually opened a Farrell's in Arkansas. Farrell's just spread like crazy across the United States. Many of you didn't know that it did. It grew to 136 restaurants. They were in most major cities. And then, of course, there was a situation that came up that caused Farrell's to actually go away. The company was sold. Bob Farrell ended up selling the company to Marriott, that ended up selling it to an investment group that unfortunately changed the dynamics of what Farrell's was so drastically that they went into bankruptcy within 2 years. What was interesting, though, is that half the company were franchises, and they were able to operate the way Bob Farrell used to operate the restaurants. But then at the end of the 5th year, they all had to close. So many of the restaurants in San Diego were actually franchises that were able to stay open longer. So as you heard, I got the idea to bring Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor back. Actually in 1998 is when I got the idea, and that came from a token that I found in one of the video arcade games that had been placed on my desk. Actually, I didn't find it. Somebody had placed it on my desk, but it was kind of obscure, and I thought, wow, Farrell's, whatever happened? And that's what kind of started my looking for Farrell's, because at the time we had a McDonald's in our fun center, and I thought, wow, if we were to put Farrell's in here, that would be great. And ultimately, down the road, and I'll explain that in a bit, but we end up, right now we have 7 restaurants, and we're actually managing a licensee in Pearl City, Hawaii. These are some of our team members, cast members. Crazy things like the volcano right there, and of course there's the pig's trough and the zoo. It was interesting. One of the things when we first opened, we started getting people calling. I was the first restaurant. People were calling me over to the table and wanting to know why we weren't doing the same thing that Farrell's used to be. And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, the pig's trough here. That is not the way the pig's trough looked." When I used to go to Farrell's. I said, "Really?" I said, "What did it look like?" "Well, it was about this big and it was about this tall." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Now, how old are you then? Do you remember?" "Well, I was 12. So I said, "Well, I think you maybe were a little smaller, because we actually used the same recipe, everything to the exact ounce, as Bob Farrell." So we ended up having to put video screens in our restaurants showing older pictures of the originals to prove to everybody the fact that I was telling the truth. So let me talk for a minute about faith in the workplace. What are the steps? Well, here's what I found out. And because when you hear my history on this, this will all make sense. So I'm putting a little bit of the cart before the horse here, but you must have a true and unwavering faith in Jesus Christ that you want to share with others. All right? So you're all here because you want to be able to bring Christ to someone that needs it, that doesn't have it right now, doesn't know. And that's really what we're all called to do, right? And so in order to do that, you really have to know that this is what you need to have. Well, Jesus taught us about this unwavering faith. When Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water, came towards Jesus, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why do you doubt?" And that's, I think, the thing that we all kind of get caught up in a little bit. Because, and I think we all have to be truthful, sometimes we do doubt. We do doubt. And then we have to kind of get back into the Word again, because then we realize that this is what we are all about and what we need to be about. So what do you need to do then? You need to get rid of your fears. Well, the first thing, and I can remember that. I go, gee, I don't know enough about the Bible. I don't know enough about the Bible. And I really wouldn't know what to say if somebody were to ask me something. And, people might think I'm weird. Or, I'm not really a very good Christian myself, so how can I talk about the Lord? Someone might complain about me in my work. Or fill in the blank. But it all comes down to faith. But you need to get rid of your fears. Because faith stands for fear ain't in this house. So, sorry I said ain't. I'm glad the kids aren't here. Mommy! But this is so true. This is so true. Number 3, you must ask God to use you. Because God uses people who want to be used. So the fears, all of those things are erased if you just ask God to use you in the workplace, to use you within your families. And this is a prayer. This is a prayer that I said and I keep with me. Lord, I love and trust you. Thank you for your love and blessings in my life. Direct me to the people in my life you want me to impact through my words and my actions, and help me to do it well. Help me to be a shining example to others of what you have taught me through your holy word. For I know my biggest reward lies in not how much money I make or what I own, but how many people I will impact today that may lead them to a relationship with you. I said a prayer like that a while back, and it was amazing, the miracles. I wish I had a whole day to talk to you about the miracles that have happened, those things that you go, what are the chances of that? Anybody ever have that? Something happens really kind of weird, and you go, well, that's like 1 in a million. No, that's not 1 in a million. That's what our family calls a God wink. That was God's plan for that to happen. Think about it the next time. So I was going to tell you about my journey. It was kind of an interesting road, as you kind of already heard, but I'm going to kind of go back, and I'm going to go through this quickly. I was raised Catholic, and at an early age, but I never developed a relationship with Christ. With the Catholic Church, I just, as a child, I just couldn't get into it. Even as a later adult in my teens, I just never had this relationship. It was kind of like a fear-based thing. I ended up getting married at age 21, very young, and she was an agnostic. And we had 2 sons a couple of years later, and I would take them to Mass alone. And when they were ready to start school, I enrolled them in a Christian preschool. We never really had arguments about religion because I knew where she stood, and I didn't really know where I stood other than I was being directed at that point. And it was all so clear to me later on in life, absolutely crystal clear. I became an LAPD officer. I did that for 8 years. And I did it out of embarrassment, if you will, because I avoided the Vietnam War being drafted. I stayed in school. A bunch of my friends got drafted, and I actually watched them get on the buses and leave. Some of them never came back. That was the last time I saw them. And I got this guilt that I didn't really do anything for my country. So I liked law enforcement, watching Adam 12, and thought that would be a great thing to do. During my tour, I had two partners. My training officer later on was killed on the freeway in an ambush, and I had another partner that I worked with, a great guy, Ron Ball, was killed in a booby-trapped pipe bomb. So, you know, to have two guys that you know that to have that happen, and of course the violence and everything that was going on, and I decided to leave the LAPD and take over my dad's skating rink. Well, there's where the roller skating comes in. So I actually skated. We skated as a family and enjoyed it. And my dad bought the skating rink. And during this period of time, just after the LAPD, I ended up getting a divorce and decided that this would be a good thing and for me to do. And so I took over the skating rink with my brother. And I started praying daily. I hadn't done that before. I just started praying daily right about that time. Just asking God for help. I just felt like I needed help all the time. Later, I moved to Orange County, and my brother stayed at our skating rink in Northridge, and I took over a skating rink in Orange, and that's where I met a girl named Robin that later on became my wife, and she was the one that introduced me to the Methodist Church. I'd never been to another church, and I began to find love for Christ there. Something just resonated with me. It was something I'd never had before, and I really owe it to my wife, Robin, sitting there. Now, I didn't have, that's my wife right there in the blue. Thanks, babe. I didn't really, when I started really liking what I was hearing, but I still didn't have love of Christ. You know what I mean? Love of Christ, where you really, so many times I'd hear people, you go to like a Harvest Crusade and you hear the chant, the whole stadium, we love Jesus. Yes, we do. We love Jesus. How about you? I didn't get it. So you can imagine my journey hadn't really gotten to the right point, but I was learning. Then I got to decided to develop a family entertainment center with my brother, and these are the miniature golf places. And my brother and I, along with a Christian company based out of Atlanta, decided to put a partnership together, and we'd build these things. And this Christian company was run by a husband and wife, 32 years old, dynamic duo, these two. And we went to church with them in Atlanta, and wow, it's like I want to be like them. And it was interesting, though, as time went on, we ended up doing the Fun Center, and they ended up taking their company public. And all this time, my brother and I were watching these two get greedier and greedier, and it was like they were morphing in front of our eyes, because their company went public and they were worth $100 million, and they ended up building a huge 23,000 square foot house, and all this lavishness, and you hear about it. My brother and I are sitting in the front row watching this. Well, guess what? It turned out that there was a little bit of fraud going on, and the SEC got a hold of it, and their company crashed. Investors lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and Wall Street was appalled at what had happened. Thing is, our fun center in Santa Clarita was part of this whole company and partnership, but my attorney had slipped in a one-sentence agreement in that operating agreement that we could take over under certain conditions. And originally they declined to have that statement in there, but my attorney left it in there. He goes, I felt we had to leave it in there. Well, guess what? They ended up approving it, which was the reason that our center was the only one to survive out of that entire company. Our partners were the only ones to remain whole and to have their investment, where all the other ones lost lots and lots and lots of money. And I always wondered, why did that happen? And again, as time went on, I soon learned. I ended up missing getting the trademark for Farrell's by 2 weeks, and became partners with a gentleman that bought the trademark that was an atheist. And I'll never forget my wife saying, "Don't do business with an atheist." Yeah, but it's my dream. It's my dream. So, and it ended up going forward. It ended up, guess what? He committed fraud against us as we were trying to build this. We ended up in a legal battle that took 6.5 years. 6.5 years. We went to trial. We won the trial. An award of $6 million that he didn't have. Ended up going to an appellate court. It was appealed. The appellate court overturned it. We thought, we're done. We're done. But he went into bankruptcy, and we were able to get the license and trademark. But I got to tell you, during that time, the only thing that held me together was the faith that I had at that time and praying to God. I prayed every time I walked in that courtroom. I prayed when we went into bankruptcy court. And you know what? Satan was really fighting me. He really, really was trying to get me. Well, we ended up getting the trademark to Farrell's in 2008. We opened Mission Viejo in 2009. And what was interesting is right about that time is where I started really feeling that God was trying to tell me something. Maybe some of you have had that before, where you've prayed and you just feel like you're being pushed. And that's what I was feeling. What was really unusual is at this time, when we opened Farrell's in 2009, that's when my faith journey really began. That's when I started really seeing like the dots being all connected with all of these past things. So we opened our first Farrell's in Mission Viejo. We had I had lots of one-way conversations with God, but still not that loving relationship. Not yet. I had heard about purpose-driven life, but I never thought about my purpose. I'd heard about it, but never thought about it. I got buried in my business. And then it was interesting. My life's priority list just started changing. The priority list that we all kind of have, we go, well, God first, family second. That's kind of the list. But due to Farrell's media exposure, and oh my gosh, we got national news when we opened because it was a big story. This company coming back and lots of interviews. So I started hearing from former employees throughout all of those other years that I talked to you about, that were telling me about the impact I had on their lives being their boss. And I didn't realize God was beginning to reveal what my purpose really was. And it was so interesting to hear those people that were now some of them in these incredible careers. Out of the blue, I hadn't talked to them in 20-something years. And they said, Mr. Fleming, remember that time such and such? That was the turning point of my life. Wow. And I'm thinking, I don't remember mentioning God. But you know something? you don't have to mention God. You don't. Because just being that example of what Christ wants us to be, they know that there's something special in you. And so that's, to hear that many people really just blew me away. Well, during the time that we opened Farrell's, Pastor Rick Warren saw the news article and called, and his secretary called and said, we heard Bob Farrell is there at your restaurant. Rick would like to meet him. So, wow, I think this is the guy that wrote Purpose-Driven Life. I think he is, yeah. I had the book. So anyway, we set up a meeting with Bob Farrell, and there he is, right there. Bob, and there's Rick eating a zoo. He told a story. He said, the last time I was in Farrell's, I was with a buddy, and both of us ate a zoo together. And so that's why I ended up serving the zoo. And it was pretty interesting that, you know, when he came, I'd never met him before, and I didn't really even know that much of being a celebrity or anything. And so he was just like another pastor to me, and so we started talking about a few things. And I thought, wow, what a nice guy. And I had brought my Purpose-Driven Life book, and I had to laugh. I said, would you mind signing this? He goes, oh, absolutely. And so he goes, oh, it's brand new. Did you just buy it? Yikes. Well, guess what? That day, I began to discover my life had a purpose. Because what happened the next few days was one of the most interesting times of my life. Facebook had taken off. We had a lot of media. Well, we opened, and within, it was less than 2 months, we had over 100,000 Facebook likes on our Facebook page. There are some companies that haven't been around, that even some restaurant companies that opened for 5-6 years didn't even have 100,000. We had 100,000 within a couple of months. And so I posted this on Facebook because I thought, well, this is kind of cool that, you know, he stopped by, and you can read I don't know if you could read the bottom. Pastor Rick stopped by today and met Bob Farrell, founder of Farrell's, who was on hand for Farrell's opening Mission Viejo. Pastor Warren wanted to meet Bob, and he and his wife, he and his wife had went on their first date at Farrell's in Riverside, California. He said they had so much fun that 8 days later he had proposed to his wife. That's a true story. Rick posed with the Farrell's corp officials, seen below. Picture was below. He also shared a zoo Sunday with Bob Farrell. So that posted, and there I am, and see I'm holding my Purpose-Driven Life book. You can see it's brand new. So I posted that, all excited, and I get a call the next day from our marketing guy, and he goes, Mike, have you seen your Facebook? And I said, no. And he says, go on it. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be exciting. People are going to be, wow, really buzzing about it. Well, guess what? It became how can I say this? A fight. Because I was there holding the book, and I was being accused of endorsing Rick Warren. I was accused of endorsing his beliefs and philosophies, and this was one of the emails that I actually got. Quite honestly, all the reasons you have given to keep the photo posted seem to be, in reality, excuses. You are sending a message that gays are not welcome at the new Farrell's. How do you justify keeping a controversial, divisive figure on your page that's meant for memories. Then he talks about me holding. It's visual endorsement of written product from a pastor who compared same-sex, same-gender relationships to incest and pedophilia. I mean, this thing, and then it was a war. Okay, so somebody would post this, the next person would post something defending Pastor Rick, and then Pastor Rick's congregation got hold of it, and then so you can imagine what was going on at this time. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. So right away I responded. I thought, okay, put the fire out and just explain what I did. Dear Farrell's fans, this Farrell's Facebook site was designed to allow everyone to post memories of their past and to see what Farrell's is doing to make its return. The posting of Rick Warren's visit was not made as an endorsement of him or his book. The book happened to be in the photo as one of the management, me. Just had the book signed, me, and photos taken. Farrell's is a happy place for everyone. There's no political agenda, and everyone views and opinions are their own, certain political, but everyone is welcome. Farrell's, we don't judge, and we appreciate not being judged by who comes in for a Sunday. We apologize to anyone who might have taken the photo posting as anything other than what it was intended to do, share a memory of a Farrell's fan. Thank you. I thought that was pretty good. What do you think? Oh, no, it wasn't. Because the next thing I got was GLAAD. I was contacted by the Los Angeles office of GLAAD informing me that my little note up there was nice, but you better take that photo down or you're going to see a protest the likes of which have never been seen in Orange County. Okay, so now you got to think of this. We just opened the restaurant. We just opened. We're on the backside of Mission Viejo Mall, Simon Mall. We had a great relationship with them. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I even reached out to no avail. It was, take it down or you're going to have the protest. So what did I do? I removed the post. You know, the last time I shouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have started choking up. Last time I did, you know, I talked about this in a public group. I had a real hard time. I have a hard time now, but I'm getting over it. And why, you're probably thinking, well, what's the problem? Because I wasn't defending my faith. Our company was built on Christian values. Come on. But I had to think of investors. You know, I had to think of the mall and all of that. And that's what I did. Well, it was interesting is right around this time, I had gotten a call from Pastor Rick's secretary saying, Pastor Rick would like to meet with you. He's got a project and he'd like to talk to you about it. So I thought, wow, this is great. So this was a little before this really started to get heated. And matter of fact, the photo was still up if I remember right. So we ended up, I ended up meeting with him at the church, and he spent an hour with me. And we started talking, and I was telling him a little bit about all the things that happened with Farrell's, and I said, I can't believe it. I said, that it happened, and he goes, oh, I can believe it. He said, you went through the 6 phases of faith. And I said, what are those? So he takes a pen and writes it down, and I still have it to this day. He goes, well, the first thing you told me is you had a dream. You want to bring back Farrell's. I said, yeah. He said, that's what you need. Everybody needs a dream, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be business. It could be anything. And then you have to make a decision. Well, your decision was, hey, I want to do this thing. So you put it together and all of that. Yeah, that's what I did. Well, the third thing that's going to happen is you're going to get delayed. You mean like a lawsuit? Yeah, that'll delay you. Okay. Well, then you're going to have difficulty. Wait, I'm going to get delayed and then I'm going to have difficulty? You mean like the appellate court? That's difficulty. Overturning the judgment completely? Yeah. And then guess what? You're going to reach a dead end. You're done. I said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. But he said, then all of a sudden, Mike, you told me it happened. I said, yeah. Well, you went through the 6 phases of faith. And I'll tell you, that thing hit me like a 2x4 in the forehead, because what I started to do is to go back in my life, roll those years back, and find out I played that 6 phases of faith dozens of times. And I wish I would have known it, because I love number 6. Woohoo! And that's what happened every single time. So, I thought, wow, this really impresses me. And, at the time, we didn't really have a church that we were going to regularly. And so we decided to try Saddleback. And I said, as I reflect on my life, today I walk in faith. But so we became members of Saddleback Church. And I've been very blessed to have had some time for Rick to even give me more information, because I wanted to have the love of Christ. And that's where I found it. You find it in different churches. You found it here. A lot of you probably found it here that you didn't have. But God brought you here for that reason. But then the next question is, how deep is your faith? This really got me. This tested my faith. And if you're honest with yourself, there are going to be some of you out there going to say, you know what, I thought the same thing. Could you have said, I am a Christian, after watching 2 people before you shot dead for saying those words? What is your religion? I'm a Christian. Pow! What is your religion? I'm a Christian. Pow! You're number 3. I thought of that. Am I there yet? 2 weeks ago, Islamic State executed 12 Christians. Some of you saw this, including a 12-year-old boy after they refused to abandon their faith. They were Christians. And they were praying. And they were calling on Jesus. These guys brutally beat this young boy in front of his father, telling his father the only way he would stop the torture is if the father professed to Islam. The father refused, and he watched his son killed, then he was killed, and 10 others were killed, and then they crucified him. Every single one of them went out saying, I love Jesus. Some of the witnesses actually did say that as they were killed. Being willing to die for Christ without hesitation is the highest form of faith and love for Him. Are you there? I'm not going to answer that question, because I'll tell you, it really is something that, for all of us, that if instantaneously you didn't go, yes, shoot me, then there's still a little more work to do. And God knows that. God knows that. But you know what? You'll get there. You'll get there. So at Farrell's, I decided after that whole fiasco that, you know what? I don't care. I don't care because I said a prayer and asked God to protect my business because I'm not going to ever do that again. And you know what? I had so many people that came to me that had said at certain times when I did mention about God, that was brought up. So I set up a small group study that meets every Thursday. We've been going to the last several years at our support center. And then we also do fellowships. Our support center isn't real big, but we have a pretty nice group of 9. I established that at all executive meetings, we open in prayer. I established that all GM and manager meetings open in prayer. Right, Chad? Yes, sir. Chad's one of our general managers at Mission Viejo, and I thank both of them for coming down and being part of this. Established that all new store opening orientations open in prayer. I usually lead off the orientation. And the first thing I do is tell them that Farrell's was founded with Christian principles, and that before we start, I would like to pray for all of you, because it's important for me to do that. So those of you that would like, bow your head. Those of you don't, that's fine. I'm not asking anyone because I'm praying for you. Bow your head. God bless all who pass through these doors. Is it all stores? By the way, Simon was going to get us. I had heard, and then they backed off. Because basically I said, bring it on. Establish Farrell's core values based on biblical principles. Pray with or for employees that are going through difficult times. Make sure our managers handle issues with the WWJD mentality. Now, we don't mention WWJD mentality, but we really don't need to because they know that these principles came from the Bible. Our work is really a ministry to make people happy and care. Care about them, care about our staff. But always the little asterisk disclaimer, we always say a disclaimer that the prayer is optional, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's important, because I do understand that there are different faiths, there are no faiths, which I hope to reach out to. So this is my office. You can't see it, but it's right there. The management of the area that we're in, the business mall, they don't allow lots of things like American flags. And the one that manages the property came by, and I saw her looking at it. She writes it down, and I'm thinking, well, here it comes. But it turns out the guy that works in the office knew that I went to Saddleback because he goes to Saddleback, and he knew because I had spoken at Saddleback about this issue, and he said, I wouldn't do that with him if I were you. Didn't hear from her. There's our little small group, and a guy that I'm proud to say is a friend, Dan Cathy. God opened a lot of doors to me when all of these problems and things were going on and other problems I haven't even talked about. It's amazing how God will open a door. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet Dan at a restaurant show, and I went up and he gave him my card, and he looked at it, and he goes, my dad was friends with Bob Farrell. And I said, well, I'm the new CEO, Dan. And I said, I've had some struggles kind of like you've had. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. I said, it's been really tough. And he goes, you know what? He takes his card. He says, you give me a call. Gave me his cell phone number. What a great guy. You know what? With a great company and nice food too. But you know what? I've learned a lot from Dan. I've learned a lot from him about faith and business. I was invited to go to one of his Actually, they only do it a few times every several years, where they bring all the franchisees into an area, and happened to be Anaheim, and he invited me and about 5 other people to come in and be part of this thing. And it was interesting that we talked to Dan before, and Dan says, okay, we got to go, our program's going to start. So we walk out into the ballroom of the Sheraton Hilton, and as we're walking out there, there's a praise band on stage, and everybody's arms are in the air. There's like 400 or 500 people. These are all the franchisees singing praise songs like, oh my gosh, screaming. I was dumbfounded. If you would have seen I was tripping over it was like, holy cow. This is like the whole western part of the U.S. All the they're there singing praise songs. Wow, what the power of God. My goodness. And they're reaching so many people. So, we need ideas to bring faith into your workplace. Boy, I'm going to have to go fast here. Consider starting a small group. I'm going to say, I want to talk about 24-hour fitness real quick. So this is an interesting story. So a friend of mine goes to 24-hour fitness. He goes, hey, I thought you might want to hear about this. He goes, I walked in 24-hour fitness, and he says, as I'm walking by, he says, I see a whole group of people. He said, it must have been like 20 or 30 people. And he said, they're sitting on the floor over by the gym that wasn't being used. And he said, and they all had Bibles. And wait, 24-hour fitness? He goes, yeah. I said, well, church study or something? He goes, yeah, I went up and I said, hey, what's going on? And he goes, well, we do a Bible study here. And I go, or he says, and he says, who can I talk to? And so he found out that what it was is that there was a gal that wanted to start a small group deal. And so she approached the manager, and the manager said, no, we don't do that. And so she went to another manager and he said, no, we don't do that. So she got an idea, kind of laid out a little plan so it wouldn't be in the way and all that kind of stuff, and went to another manager who said, wow, what a great idea. Do you have anybody that wants to go? And she goes, yeah, I think I've got about 10. Well, it had only been going for a couple of weeks, and she was up to 30. Pretty impressive. Now, I don't know if it's still going, because my guess is it probably kept growing. Everybody wanted to go to the Bible study. But you know what? What a great opportunity that she took upon herself. And I applaud the business as well for being part of that. One of the things I did put on there is, if you want to ease into, putting a group together, use Andy Stanley's leadership videos and podcasts for training. Reason I see his leadership, he has a program where they're very, the messages, and these are leadership programs. It's really appeals to the secular crowd, but there is a little bit of faith put in there, but it's kind of one of those things where you can, when you listen to it, you go, wow. And so I told some of my managers about it, and it was amazed. I said, you don't have to listen. I said, but this guy's got a really good idea on some leadership. He's helping the CEO of Home Depot and all this other stuff. And it was amazing how many people came back and said, wow. And so, again, it just is another avenue. Put a prayer box on your desk, lunchroom or entry. Prayer boxes, if anyone needs prayer, put it on my desk, put a little note in there, and I'll pray for you. Start a prayer request email with employees for weekly prayers for employees who request it. Those signed up will take email requests home each Monday and pray for them. This gives the person praying the opportunity to follow up with the employee. I put Undercover Boss because there was an episode of Undercover Boss, Hershon Family Fun Center, Entertainment Center, amusement parks, Dollywood and that. Joel Manby, CEO, and the company, with very strong Christian company, that's what they do. It's everything is optional. Matter of fact, on their application, their employment application, it said, would you like someone to pray for you? And you opt in. Just put a little X in the box on their application. And so they've got an incredible program, and it's absolutely amazing for a company to do something like that. And you know what their highest award is for their employees? It's the Servant Leadership Award. And you know what it is? It's a statue that's about this big, and I actually saw it. And it's a statue of Jesus washing the feet of his disciple. What a great, great company. Set up quarterly community fellowship projects with coworkers. You don't have to say anything about it. You're just showing what and who we are. But don't let fear stop you. But again, disclaimer, be sure to discuss policies with your company. As a company, if allowed, others can do it too. You know, they have to let all religions. But again, don't be afraid. All right, I've got a few minutes left, and I want to throw this in because this is where I struggle. Robin, right? Now, here we go. Here we go, here we go, here we go.
In my first job with a consulting firm in Boston called the Boston Consulting Group, about a month after I started with the company, the project leader that I was working for came to me on like a Tuesday and said, Clay, just so you can plan on this, on Sunday at 2 p.m. we've got a big team meeting because we've got to put together everything we have for a big meeting next Monday with the client. And this is your assignment. And I said, oh man, Mike, I got a problem here. And that is, I made a commitment to God when I was 16 that I wouldn't work on Sundays. And just I'm a religious guy, and that was just what I wanted to do with my life. And Mike just went bonkers. And he said, this is a company where everybody, if they have to, works when they have to work. And I said, well, I observe that, but I don't want to be that kind of person. And if I can't take my Sundays for my faith, I just don't want to work here. He was so mad, and he went off. Came back about an hour later, calmed down a little bit. And he said, look, I talked to everybody else, and we'll do it on Saturday at 2 p.m. And I said, oh, Mike, I got a problem because I made a commitment to my wife that I wasn't going to work on Saturday. That was a focus on our family. And Mike went off the deep end on that one. And he said, if you're married and you take a job with this company, you got to know what goes first. And I said, well, the reason I'm in trouble is because I know what has to come first, and I can't come to this meeting on Saturday. He said, everybody works on Saturday. And I said, but I can't. Anyway, he went off even madder, came back an hour later, and he said, do you by chance work on Fridays? Anyway, so it worked just fine. And
we'll just stop it there. I mean, I was blown away, and I saw this not too long ago. This gentleman is a Harvard Business School professor that now has his own company. His name is Clayton Christensen. He had a stroke several years before, and he actually recovered. He talks about learning how to talk again and all of that. And you know what? It was amazing. Let me see if I can move this forward here. There we go. It was amazing to hear something like that for me, because I struggle with this. So really, what I'm finding out is you need to discover what your purpose on earth is by asking God, then listening for his answer. Oh my gosh, I talk a lot, and I need to shut up. Because you know when I do, he talks to me. He does. He talks to me. All those other years, I just never listened. The top 4 most important things in my life are fill in the blanks. There's 4. 4. Fill them in. Ask God every day to help you keep those priorities in order. And every day, review them by posting them around you, because you need to be reminded, and I need to be reminded every single day, what our top 4 priorities are, and do the things we need to do to make sure those priorities stay in that same number, 1, 2, 3, 4, every single day. And you do that by nurturing your faith daily to keep fear out of your house. But finally, the most important thing, and I'm going to finish now, you must realize when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. I want you to think about it. Some of you have had arguments about, well, you know what, I just need to stay just a little bit longer. Yeah, but you said you were going to be home but I just need to stay a little bit longer. What we missed on Clayton, that last little part, is he actually talked about that. Is he said the most important thing he found is to never waver. Once you set your priorities, you don't waver. You don't make exceptions. And he said, that's what I did. And that's what I need to do. So before you answer, always ask yourself, if I say yes to blank, to whom or what am I saying no? And what is their priority number in my life? I struggle with this. I really do. But I'll tell you, I am doing everything in my power and God's grace to be able to get to the point where I walk in front of you and go, 1, 2, 3, 4 are in line every single day. I want to pray for all of you. Lord, I just thank you for the time that I've had tonight to talk to this fellowship and learners that are here, Lord, to really get empowered by you and to get empowered by those who are going to be speaking and teaching during this next couple of days. And Lord, I just ask you to open everyone's heart and mind to all of the ideas that come forth, and to let everyone leave this place and not just take the papers and put them in the drawer, but actually keep them in a place where they can look at them every day. Because we know you brought us all here for a reason. And it was your purpose for every single one of us to be in this place at this day, at this time. And so, Lord, please bless all of the people that stand before me. Protect them, their families, protect their businesses, Lord, as they go out into the world to try to bring those who need to hear your word the most, and for them to be successful in doing that. And I ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very, very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.